And we are recording this to the NWSOFA YouTube live account. It will be up on the NWSOFA website. If you have to go to the bathroom or anything, you can come back and pick up right to where you left off if you want, using the video. If you do not want to be on the video, please turn your video for your screen off now. Uh, and that this will be available for you to share or to review at any time.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone, to Vision Forward. It is so good to see familiar faces and to keep building together. Each one of our sessions so far has been a stepping stone. We began with values, grounding ourselves in what matters most and why we do this work. We built from there into vision, imagining the future we're striving for, not just resisting what we oppose, but articulating what we want to see instead. Then we looked at policy, asking how we translate that vision into concrete, actionable proposals that we can shape into real change. And finally, we focused on strategy, that bridge between what we dream of and what we can win step by step together. And that's been the arc. And tonight we arrive at the next essential piece, that beautiful thing we've all been waiting for, messaging. Because none of those elements, not values, not vision, not policy, not even strategy, matter if we cannot communicate them in a way that moves people, right? So messaging is about more than clever slogans and sound bites. It's about telling our story clearly, consistently, and in a way that resonates both in the head and in the heart. Because we are living in a moment where misinformation spreads faster than the truth. I mean, like in a millisecond, y'all. Lies are repeated so often that they can feel louder than reality. But here's what we know. When we frame our messaging around truth, values, and hope, we can anchor people in reality. Messaging matters because it shapes what people remember, what they repeat, and ultimately what they believe is possible. It's one of the most powerful tools we have to defend democracy and to inspire people to act. Tonight, we'll focus on one tool in particular, the truth sandwich. Here's the recipe. We start with the truth, strong, clear, and rooted in values. If you need to mention the misinformation, you state it simply and without repetition or sensationalism. Then you close again with the truth, reinforcing reality and giving people something solid to hold on to. Think of it this way. People remember what they hear first and what they hear last. So if you lead and end with the truth, that's what sticks. The falsehood gets starved of oxygen while the truth gets reinforced. So here's our flow tonight. We'll start with a short introduction to some core principles of messaging. Then we'll dig into the truth sandwich approach. After that, you'll get a chance to practice in breakout groups, building your own truth sandwiches on real issues we're facing right now. And finally, we'll come back together as a group and debrief what worked and talk about the next steps as we prepare for our next and possibly final session. Messaging is how we bring everything together, y'all. Values, vision, policy, and strategy give us direction, but messaging is the vehicle that carries them out into the world. The stories that we tell shape the terrain that we fight on. And tonight, we get to sharpen those stories, anchor them in truth, and practice the kind of communication that doesn't just push back against the lies, but builds momentum toward the world we're trying to create. So let's dive in and start with the truth. So today's speakers and facilitators are Cecilia, myself, Dr. Chris, and Rebecca, Adrian, Bruce, Jim Schwartzy, Joe, Woods, Melissa. But most importantly, y'all, all of you. So I'm handing off to Dr. Chris.
Yeah, hi everyone. So here we are. It's our fifth session of Vision Forward. So I'm going to give you a little overview of the initiative and the plan for tonight. But I wanted to start just because I know some folks on the call are new with the background on how the project started to begin with. So in May, after one of our coffee and conversation after hours, there was some concern with those folks who stayed in the after call about the Dems having lost and being concerned about us not having good messaging as it compares to the current regime. So we talked about just the need for clearer, more compelling ways to communicate what we stand for, a vision and messaging that resonates with everyday people, with the main goal of just using plain conversational language, so not a lot of elite jargon, polite speak, etc., that was overly complicated and felt somewhat disconnected from how people really live their lives. And we talked about that because we had a sense that voters didn't really know where we stood. And so on a day late in May, Vision Forward was born. It became a project to define our vision for America's future and craft messages that were clear, compelling, and true to our shared values. But like many grassroots initiatives, we were definitely building this airplane as we were flying it. And so the project itself was somewhat fluid. We changed the scope a little bit when one of our group members, Joe Woods, who's on the call tonight, shared a document that he wrote for his representatives where he called for coherent messaging and this is the big and a strategic action plan. So at that point, we kind of added that piece to the project. So we realized that the project was missing that strategy element. So we identified the following objectives and have organized Vision Forward project into 5 specific phases. So the first one was sharing our pro-democracy values. And then secondly, envisioning a compelling future for our country, designing a policy framework that charted the path to achieve that vision, and then creating this set of strategies with real world actions to present a strong opposition and offer an irresistible alternative in the midterms. And last but not least, and that's where we are tonight, is to develop simple, clear, and compelling messaging that resonates with everyday people. So on to our plan for tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. She's going to recap what we've done in previous meetings. And then we are going to turn to today's primary focus, which is messaging. We're going to introduce some fundamental principles on messaging, as well as the Truth Brigade sandwich methodology for combating misinformation. And after that, we'll be discussing the Truth Sandwich approach in our breakout room. So you have a chance to practice what we have just preached, if you will, and what you've just learned. And then we will get back together to debrief and discuss what happened in the breakout rooms. We'll end with a wrap-up session and talk about next steps and how we prepare for the next. And possibly final session. We may be shifting a little bit to another focus, so it's to be determined, but it may go into a different phase or a different approach. More to follow on that. So turning it over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Chris. So yes, as Chris mentioned, we did have 5 phases, and we're in the 5th phase now. So just to make sure that everybody's caught up, I am going to do a quick recap of the prior phases, and that's important because we want to bring everybody along, but also because this project has built on itself. So when we're developing a messaging platform or a messaging strategy, it's important for you to know what the vision was and what the policies are so that you can actually speak to those. So we'll try and cover those in a fairly succinct manner. Okay. And then that's when we'll be in a position to develop messaging that is really consistent with all of the phases that we've completed so far. So with that, our first meeting reflected on our shared values. And that's all of these things that are in the bubbles. Things like voting and liberty and human dignity and education and wealth and like just all of these wonderful things that we want for ourselves and our society. But they was all kind of disconnected. So we looked at these things and some themes started to emerge. And so we organized all of these values into 4 core beliefs. Opportunity to thrive here, which is all about creating conditions where everyone can succeed and flourish in our society. Democracy and freedom is about having a really inclusive and participatory democracy or society, which is centered on equal voice, equal rights, and equal power. We have fairness and equity, which is around, every person has inherent value. And also there's kind of an emphasis here on caring for vulnerable communities, which may have suffered in the past from systemic inequalities or disparities. And finally, we have secure and sustainable future, which gets at the concept that we want a society that honors truth, that protects future generations, and factors in some considerations of sustainability and safety for everyone. So those are our 4 core beliefs. And so that was a guiding principle as we started developing our vision. So by breaking up the values into these 4 core beliefs, we were able to start to put some kind of building blocks together of the vision. So you can see by separating it into these 4 core beliefs, and then under each core belief, we have these elements of the vision, and that makes it easier to think about and plan in each area. So just as an example, under opportunity to thrive, part of our vision is that everyone has access to a lifetime of affordable, high quality education. And so we built out this vision across the four pillars. And then from there, we organized policy recommendations related to each building block of the vision. And we used a metaphor while working on this task. So the vision is, if the vision is the brownie, the thing that's really irresistible, the end goal, the thing that everybody wants, The policy platform is the recipe for how to make the brownie. The vision is the irresistible end goal, and the policy platform is the ingredients that you have to get the brownie, to make the vision a reality. So going back to our example of the building block of our vision being everyone has an access to a lifetime of affordable, high quality education, then the ingredients that you need to make that brownie, the ingredients are you need to fully fund public schools, including special ed. You need universal pre-K and early learning, and then you need access to advanced education, whether it's community college or trade school, etc. So that's the policy platform. And you can see that over the next couple of slides that the policy platform covers all of the elements of the vision. And maybe thinking to yourself as we go through this really quick, that some of these policy proposals seem pretty broad. And that's intentional, actually. Because taking a step back, often it's the case that multiple solutions are possible to realize the same policy goal. So in the case of if our vision is healthcare accessible for everyone, you could have Medicare for all, you could have single payer. Those are both potential solutions to get that healthcare for all outcome. And so it's not our call today here in this project to determine which solution we go with. Ultimately, that will all come out in the wash through public discourse. So we did leave the policy recommendations broad. They're more outcome oriented rather than specific plans. All right, we're almost through the recap here. I know it's a lot. Our last session was focusing on strategy. So this really acknowledges that Dems are not we don't hold majority power at the moment. And we're sort of hamstrung in terms of our ability to govern or introduce changes or legislation. So in the meantime, we have to have some kind of an action plan that positions our opposition party to retake power as soon as possible and limit the damage while we're working on that. So I'll just give I'll give Joe his flowers here because this is really the product of Joe Wood's brain. So let's give him his snaps for this part of the framework. So this strategy is based on 4 tenets or foundation principles. And so each potential tactic could be based, should ideally relate to one of these foundation principles. So organizing and acting, making sure that we have a coordinated plan across multiple groups. Agitating and mobilizing. Agitate doesn't necessarily mean we're doing negative things. It could be a way to inspire people to action. It could also be like making ourselves annoying to prevent things that we don't want from happening. Localize and personalize. This is just a way to make our vision and plans real to people in different parts of the country. So one way to do this is by talking to people in ways that their lives will actually be affected by this in ways they can relate to. So talking to them through stories and not, Washington jargon or whatever. And then the last thing is really to lean in with passion. Um, Own the issues, acknowledge that the problems, people are facing real problems, and offer them some solutions. And that's what this is all about. Um, so those are the foundations of strategy, but you also have to tailor those principles or those um, tenets of strategy with an intended target, an audience. The way that you approach your elected representative is probably going to be different from the way you talk to your book club or um, your precinct or your friends and family. There's a question in the chat. What is NSL? Joe, do you mind chiming in? What is NSL?
National, state, and local. So
Okay,
across the entire range.
perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So by combining, shoot, lost my place. Okay. By combining, one or more of these strategy principles with a target, that's how you come up with a tactic. That's a specific action for a specific audience. So our last session was really focused on brainstorming a bunch of tactics. And so I do have them kind of documented here, and we will share these out so that folks that can reference them if you want to use these for your own local action planning. We came up with a bunch of them. They're great ideas. Highly recommend copying them. But just to talk about some themes that emerged, persistence. So a lot of these are not one and done type things. You kind of have to make yourself a squeaky wheel. I've said this before. I personally believe that being a little or maybe a lot annoying is a really underrated political lever. Um, just just be the sand in the wheels so that it don't make it easy on them. Um, Experimentation. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let's try stuff. We don't know if it's going to work or not. Let's try it. And if it fails, let's fail fast and figure it out. And then tailoring. So like we mentioned, one size does not fit all. You really need to be thoughtful about, you know, what, who are you trying to influence with this strategy that you're working on, and make sure that it's appropriate for that target. And then lastly, just some final thoughts. Make politics visible in everyday life. Personalize national issues locally. Keep being persistent. Just be relentless. And finally, build coalitions that can respond quickly to threats. Because we can't be everywhere. I can't be everywhere all at once, but we can be everywhere all at once. So now you're caught up. I know that took a while. So now we're able to turn our attention to what everybody's been waiting for, kind of. We were going to hear some of this information from an actual expert, somebody qualified to teach us. Mindy Ramsey, who is part of our group, and she's a social media consultant with some bona fides in this area, but she wasn't available, or she wasn't able to be here today. So you've got me and Dr. Chris, which is great. We're great. And but we're not the experts. So give us a little grace. So messaging. Here are some fundamental. We'll start with some fundamentals first. So how we talk is how we win. Today we're really focusing on how everyday conversations can shift the narrative. This isn't necessarily how speeches by politicians or, folks on TV, how they do their work. This is about how we talk in like book clubs and church groups and over the fence to your neighbor. Let's see. Because this is most useful when it's a tool for all of us. So just wanted everybody to have that background and that context, that this is for us regular people who don't get paid to do politics. So some rules of engagement, some clean fighting rules. We want to make sure that everything that we do or say is based on values, so something positive, not always problems and something negative. Do you want to talk about making villains visible? That's not super hard these days. Make sure that you can draw a contrast between what we want and what those in leadership are doing, and how those are often two different things. And close it off with something positive, with hope and vision. If you remember nothing else, make sure that when you're trying to do messaging, it doesn't devolve into arguing. A lot of this is through finding common ground. And when we get to the truth sandwich part, that's step one. And this next slide should be reminiscent of something you've already heard, which is the who matters. So different people need to hear different things, need to get different actions. So tailoring your strategy, tailoring your message, that's going to make it more effective. Because remember, talking to your neighbor is different than talking to a legislator. Like, tone matters. So here are some guidelines or some suggestions for tone. Okay. And then here is a little bit of guidance around what to say, or maybe how to say it. So remember to frame the issue in our values. And remember, we've talked about what our values are. We have those 4 core beliefs and all of the underlying values in there. And so then we have a classic do or don't. The do here would be base everything on that vision, the brownie. Talk about the good stuff, that irresistible stuff that we all want. Don't talk about the recipe. Don't talk about all of the steps, all of the nitty-gritty ins and outs of the policy proposals. And definitely don't parrot back their framing of the problem. Border crisis, or, all of the misinformation stuff you sometimes hear. Instead, make sure we say what we want in terms of our values and contrast it clearly with what they're doing. So those were some fundamentals of messaging strategy. I hope that was comprehensible. With that background, I do want to make, I just want to talk about how we're proceeding with our messaging strategy. So we're going to talk about two approaches here. We're going to use the remainder of today's session to learn and practice the indivisible truth sandwich model. And that's really aimed at combating misinformation. And then in the next session, we're going to develop a strategy of what to say or what not to say when talking about this Vision Forward project. We're going to be synthesizing messaging approaches from a couple of different folks. But the content of the messages that we're talking about is going to be based on everything that I just talked about, the vision, the
2021,
policy.
they've done.
So with that, I think we're ready to hand it back to Chris to talk about the truth sandwich model.
Yeah. Hey, okay. All right. So what we're going to do now, actually, let me start with this. If you have some experience with this model, meaning if you're part of Indivisible's Truth Brigade, go ahead and put that in the chat just so I kind of know who has had a little bit of an introduction. If you have been involved in our Sharing Our Stories group, we've introduced this or even similar models with a couple of our guest speakers. You may remember Erica Vladimir. She used a similar model, but added the component where you would tell your story as well. So if you have if you're familiar with it, let me know. Okay, so probably one of the key points, just starting off with this, is that this work is based off of George Lakoff's work and also Anat Shenker-Osario's work. And one of the premises is that when we talk to people, we have to start by making a connection, finding some common ground, and as opposed to getting into a debate or trying to fact check and bring statistics and things like that to make your argument. So the model works like this. You start by just trying to open someone's mind and coming up with some common ground and shared values. Okay. Now, the Truth Brigade model specifically uses this 3D. Sometimes that's easier for people to remember. So they talk about discovering common ground. And that would align very closely with some of the models that we've talked about before, where you start with your values. So the discover common ground is exactly aligns with the value step. And then the second part of the Truth Brigade model is that you're trying to disrupt the information, and you can do that by just getting the person to pause, like take a breath a little bit, and question the information that they have, that as I said is misinformation or disinformation. So just that pause alone and that question step where you disrupt it, and you ask them to think critically about it. The research shows that actually reduces the likelihood that they will even spread the information just by getting them to that second step. And then the last part of the model is where you want to sandwich it again with the truth, but specifically try and find a little bit of a hook, something for them to remember, a common vision, a common dream, and that's where you end the model. And then we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so let's say, for example, you're somebody says something like, crime is completely out of control and we need, the National Guard in our cities. Okay. So, I mean, you've heard that, right? I mean, I was at a session with Bill's current issues group, right, Bill? And this was like the topic of discussion. This was almost right from the script. I was glad that I had been to some of the Truth Brigade Sandwich, trainings. So the value statement, so how you can respond to that is, you start by something that they're going to agree on, meaning this is common ground for all of us. I hear you. I understand your concern. We all want to live in safe communities, so right, nobody's going to debate that. Those are things that we all share. But then you want to disrupt the actual misinformation. And so you could kind of align that if you're using the 3V model, is that this is the villain, right? But sometimes, if we were to call in the National Guard, that's not always the best way to handle crime, and it might actually make the situation worse. So that's how you disrupt the information. And then you end with what that you can all agree on. And again, sandwiching it in with the truth. But we definitely can work together and with community-based programs we know have been really effective, things like neighborhood bike control. And because we know that we want any type of policing that we do to make sure that we're building trust between the community and police. Okay, so that's how. So there was no step where we brought up statistics. We didn't fact check. We didn't get into an argument, because the way this works, or way their model is just that you just want to disrupt it and start with common values and a common ground. All right, next one, because we're going to do 2 examples, and then we are going to practice this in the breakout rooms. So here's one on border issues. So this is another probably one that you have heard people say, I mean, we're having an invasion at the border. We've heard Trump talk about this. They're coming in, they're taking over, crime is rampant, right? So so what can we do as a starting point in terms of just common ground and values? So you can see on the slide. So families everywhere just want to keep their children safe and have a shot at a better life. And then when you're disrupting the lie, you're trying to point to, who is it that is trying to benefit from even spreading this information, right? And so, in this case, we would suggest that, we probably need to look at, the whole broken immigration system. Maybe that's something, and really hold our leaders accountable for that. And then end with the dream, the vision. But a better future for all is one where families, that are seeking asylum are protected by humane policies, and that we keep families together, families stay whole, and no one is left behind. So are you seeing how that's all put together? So again, no statistics, no fact checking, trying to convince them, because what happens when you offer when you get into that debate mode, or where you start you naturally shut down communication, because then people are used to this tit for tat. And so again, we're going to practice this, but better yet, just sneak preview as we're going forward. Rebecca, you can go ahead to the next slide. So before we get into the breakout rooms, I just want to clarify. So we are giving you the how you disrupt and address misinformation. In our next session of sharing our stories, we are actually going to have Jody Ryan, who is the founder of the Truth Brigade. She works for Indivisible National, and she has agreed to. I told her we're all still learning. We're going through this process, and what would be really helpful if we had some really good examples of her modeling this, straight from the source. So this is going to be your intro to the Truth Sandwich. We're going to have an opportunity to practice it in the breakout rooms a little bit. And I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca now, who is going to get us set up for the breakout rooms.
Okay. So, Chris, did you talk through the assignment, or do you want me
Yeah,
to?
let me do that. So we're going to break up into rooms. Each room will have a note taker. And so just someone that can report back to the overall group. When you're in the breakout session, you can see that we have uh, 5 possible things that you can choose from. So pick 2, any 2. The group can decide which 2 that they'd like to respond to build their truth sandwich. And so, so after, you know, you pick the 2 that you want to do. In fact, I would just say at this point, at least try and make it through one. Okay. And if you get to the second one, that's great. And then you can, as a group, start working on your 3-part response. Okay. Using that model that we just talked about. So you're going to start with discovering common grounds, the values. That's the top of the sandwich. Then you're going to disrupt the lie and and kind of wonder about, who might be motivating this, misinformation. And then you are going to end with your vision and dream of a better future. So, all right, now I will turn it over to Rebecca, who's actually going to put us in the breakout rooms. So again, two things to remember. You're going to be picking 1 to 2 prompts, and then you're going to come up with a truth sandwich and have somebody that is taking some notes that can then report back when we get back from the breakout sessions.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch the breakout rooms, and then I will send a facilitator to each room. So it's just going to take maybe 1-2 minutes, something like that. So you can either go ahead and get started, selecting your note taker person, and then get the conversation going once your facilitator joins. So here we go. Open all of the rooms. Okay. One moment. Okay. So folks are going, and I'm going to send Dr. Chris, you are going to room number 1. Bruce is going to room number 2. Adrian gets room number 3. Cecilia gets room number 4. Jim will go to number 5. Joe will go to number 6, and Melissa number 7. Stop share. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a good breakout room.
Wasn't long enough for some of us. Our
Oh, nice.
Whew, that was a lot more difficult than anticipated, but fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say we only got through one in ours, but I think it just goes to show it takes some practice. I mean, that's why. So we're doing the warm-up session, and then, like I said, for those who are able to go to sharing our stories next Tuesday, we'll be able to follow up and practice a little more. So,
Our
right.
group did 4. We got 4.
Oh my God. We
I
got
had
through
4.
2.
Wow.
And
Guys are
we
Group
spent,
effort.
There's
we spent
always an
most of our time,
overachiever group. Yeah, but that's good. That's awesome.
We did the 2.
We
we
did
spent most
one.
of our time on one, but then we did a lightning round and did a second one in 2 minutes.
Oh,
Okay, Joe. Thank you.
No, they were great. The team was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a good team too.
We had a deep dive. We needed solid focus.
That's awesome.
That's good
And that's
too.
why we have the breakout rooms, right? Everyone takes a different approach. It's great.
I'm just teasing, but it's not a competition at all. Not like, do we get a prize because we did 4? Haha.
That's
Monetary prize.
all right.
You guys need to
It
report
depends
then.
on whether it was quantity versus quality.
There you go.
We have to make that assessment.
I guess we'll find out.
Okay, so I think we're ready to transition over to, I believe, Cecilia to just kind of out process and call the note takers and see how everybody did. So, all right.
Yeah. So I think we should hear from Joe's group. I think y'all, let's see what you cooked up.
Okay,
Okay.
Kim.
We chose the pocketbook prompt. So we had a few ways to address it, and one was yes, we're all
So
concerned.
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt. I'll read the pocketbook prompt.
Okay.
Tariffs are going to bring in a lot of money and help with the national debt. Tried to do that in my MAGA voice. Not very good, but all right, go ahead. Thank you.
One way was to agree that everyone's concerned about national debt. However, they tell us that other countries are paying this, but really consumers are paying the cost of the tariff. For instance, have you seen like the price of coffee? It's really hitting my pocketbook hard. Then the national debt, another way was that the national debt needs to be addressed, but we need to look for other solutions that don't put the bulk of the burden on the backs of those that are already, having a difficult time getting by.
Those on lower fixed incomes.
Well, not everyone's on a fixed income in terms of families.
It could be
A fixed income is a
could be both.
guaranteed income. That's a luxury that only the retirees get.
Then we also came up with using the discussion about tariffs in terms of like our farmers who have no market for their soybeans any longer because China is not placing orders, and therefore that is hurting our communities and our food chain. We all want to, somebody else mentioned that they would reply with, yeah, I'm worried about my household debt before the national debt. So it's not worth putting the burden on us and our neighbors. Any extra revenue will go more toward the billionaires. I think I got all of that for the first prompt. Joe, did you have anything else to add?
I think you got it.
Okay. Then healthcare, our lightning round. That one, did you want to read the prompts, Rebecca?
Yes, okay. I think the cuts to Medicaid are needed. There's so much fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yes, but the people most affected by these cuts are those that are low income, are families with disability, disabled, or elderly, or the elderly. We also mentioned that early intervention and preventative care saves more money in the long run than making those cuts. We also said that having hospitals close and less access to doctors would actually end up driving our costs up instead of saving money.
Yeah, and I'd just say that in the beginning, you know, the what we call common ground. I think what we had said is, yeah, we're all concerned about healthcare costs. You know, we agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the disruption statements were the ones that you raised. And then I think we were talking about some of the visions. Did you get any of those down? Like the positive, what we'd rather see?
No, I guess I didn't get that down.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And what I was going to say is this particular topic, so that one about the Medicaid cuts, I know we may have another group did it. I know that came up in our group. That's going to be a real conversation you're likely to have, right? As we're getting ready to face this budget bill. So, you know, the fact remains is $800,000 was cut in Medicaid. And right now the messaging with the Trump regime is that that's not really going to impact anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse. So this will be a good practice conversation for you to have. And so, Cecilia, were we ready to go to the second group? Where you got, or was that your
Nice
second
job,
one?
Kim and team.
All
Thanks.
right. Thank you so much. All right. So I see we have group 3, I think. Adrian's group.
Okay. I am reporting out on us. So we picked DEI as our topic. And common ground was, of course, we're looking for the most. Oh, the prompt. Christine, do you want to do the prompt?
Or Rebecca.
Your mega voice, or
it's reverse discrimination to have diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. We should only hire the best that are qualified.
Okay. So, of course, we're all looking for the most qualified, and that could be anyone. We need to understand what the best qualifications are for this job. It's not a one-size-fits-all qualification. And we did talk about whether people really understood what DEI stands for, and that sometimes asking, well, what do you understand diversity and equity and inclusion to mean? And then I think those are most of what we talked about in that context. For the disruption, so why do people think that minorities are not qualified? Do you really think that it's only about meeting a quota? Why do you assume that someone else is unqualified because they don't talk like you or walk like you? Is there no diversity? If there's no diversity, then isn't there a homogeneous situation? And that's just not the strength of the best individual's qualifications, but it's an asset to the team to have someone else with questions and experience, with different experience and education. And if you get rid of diversity, don't you just have sameness? For example, in a family, would you want every child to be the same? Would each one have different needs, but they also have different strengths? And what we're trying to do, and this is outside of the conversation, but what we're trying to do is rectify the perception that this person is not qualified. So everyone who is qualified should be considered for this position in a hiring situation. And then looking at the vision, we were kind of rushed, but I think some of the earlier things that we said also speak to the vision. That another idea was that the first thing on the application is to not have to put your race or your age or your application. That should be the first step towards hiring for qualifications. And
or disability, veteran status, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. If you don't have diversity, you're also looking through only one lens, and you'll miss the things that you might not otherwise see. And everybody knows somebody who might need consideration, and we're all smarter together than we are alone. And then it's ironic that somebody had in the chat that I saw when we came back from the breakout room, a Patton quote, "If everyone is thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking."
That's very good.
Very
Well
good.
done.
Mm.
All right.
Also, you may want to reconsider using the word homogeneity when you're talking to people who
Sameness.
I know what it means.
Yeah, that
They only hear that. They only hear the
The
first
homo part.
two.
They're gonna
The
go.
first
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fair.
Something else that we discussed that may be possible to add to the future stuff is to make hiring processes more transparent. So to have somebody suggested that we need to know more about the qualifications, and I think that's a great idea because there could be public posts like on Glassdoor, etc.
Yeah.
And also that, oh shoot, guys, I just lost my train of thought. Apologies.
That's okay. If it comes back, roll that train on over.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. How about Mr. Schwartzy? How about your group?
Oh, can I pause for a second? I remembered it. Was to have sort of institute a policy where the interview process is blind up until a point. In other words, you don't know any of the qualifying factors to make a decision as to whether it's a quote unquote DEI hire or not.
Oh, like they do for musicians.
Yes, the
where-
Boston Symphony, I think,
Yeah.
did that. Mhm.
The
Yeah.
female
And I,
musicians aren't allowed to wear high heels or whatever.
And just
great.
FYI, I was working with a company that was providing tools to make hiring completely transparent from that standpoint. You didn't know their actual name because names can cause bias. You didn't have a picture of them, so you couldn't see race or all that. And they actually, if the people looking for the job and the hiring company agreed, they would use avatars so that you wouldn't know about disabilities, you wouldn't know man or woman. So there are technologies out there that can get on that path. And they've been used by big companies like Oracle, Novo Nordisk, and Microsoft. So yes, Adrian, I can give you a name.
Great.
That's good to hear.
My goodness. Well, Mr. Schwartzy, how about your group? Oh, you need to unmute though. Oh, I think
There we go, finally. Okay, so we forgot to have somebody take notes, but I took some notes myself. And one of the things we did the healthcare. And we looked at it and thought the one way to really attack and disrupt the common ground is that that everybody's one accident away from bankruptcy, and that's the reason we need healthcare, and for everybody. And we talked about let's see. We also talked about people don't feel like they're getting anything from their tax dollars. And so that why should we pay for healthcare for everybody when we're just getting taken to the cleaners? And we talked about our basically how this country is built on the fact that we're all individuals and we have to make it on our own and we have to sink or swim. And so that's one of the other background thoughts. And let's see, we felt that the real solution is a single payer so that everyone has an opportunity. We also talked about the fact that if you don't have healthcare for everyone, then we all end up paying for it. Because if you don't have it, then the cost gets passed on to the people that do have insurance. So
That's correct.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bruce Harris, how about your group?
Okay, Kelly, you took the notes. If you want to unmute yourself.
Okay. I'll do climate responsibility because we did healthcare too. I think we've drained that one. So the common ground we came up with was we all want clean water and clean air to breathe. We want to respond to science that's well researched. Someone said we want to live in a pleasant climate where plants can grow food, so we need enough energy to live on. So the disruption was renewable energy. And, we can make money in clean energy. And the values were promoting multiple clean energy programs and, working to rejoin the Paris Agreement, and that there'll be a lot more jobs in clean energy, which actually could replace and upgrade jobs from where they are now.
Okay, that was great. Thank you very much. And as for my group, I was hoping Jose might be able to speak for us. Will you do that? Or anyone else who took notes? Please.
Well, who's in the note taker?
Well, we had several people taking notes.
I took notes. Sorry, people.
That's all right.
Okay, then let her speak up.
All right.
Okay, so we did DEI, crime and safety, but we only got to DEI. So we started out with, I agree with you when you say that you want to have the best qualified candidates. But there was a however that you need a team that consists of various skills, abilities, and come from multiple backgrounds. And qualifications come from various areas. There was a question posed by Lily. Was this a conversation or are we making a statement? Then she went on to say that everybody wants to be great and have success. Someone else stated that they wanted to maximize the qualification pool, create opportunities for everyone, and have an environment for success. One of the individuals is having a hard time figuring out the common ground. So that was one of the issues. Judith wanted to ask the question, how do you tell who is qualified? And then we got on the issue of believing that fairness may have been the common ground.
Good.
And how do we get there was another question. And then that other part was talking about the struggle for fairness was not just semantics. And dealing with that middle group, not trying to change the minds of individuals who are really extremists, but dealing with that middle group of people. Jose had mentioned that. And that middle group may be seeking specific opportunities that they feel are not afforded to their children. And so going there. Don't know if we hit on the vision. Not sure.
Sydney, did you take the notes of the last one that we discussed? Because I think we were making more headway on that one than the first one.
Yeah.
Which last one we discussed? Talking about which last one we discussed? I'm sorry.
Well, there were two issues that were brought up that we focused on. The first one was DEI. We didn't make much headway on that. And then what was the second issue?
You said crime and safety?
Crime and safety, yeah.
I didn't hear a lot about the crime and safety.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, so maybe a potential vision would be like, yeah, we absolutely want everyone
to be safe.
all the jobs to be hired by the best qualified candidate, including folks that have been systemically left out of these opportunities. Like we want all of this to be hiring to be fair, and kind of like Joe's team was talking about with the blind hiring process, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Cindy.
You are.
And whose team am I missing?
Ours, I think. Anyone else?
Melissa, you're
Yes.
right next to me.
And Chris's
And
too.
mine.
And Chris.
Yeah.
You go,
You can
Chris.
Melissa first. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Is it Kathy? I'm looking for my person. If it's
Yeah,
Kathy,
that's
right?
me,
There
Kathy.
we go.
Right. Hi. We did get through 4, so I'm pretty impressed with us. We had a great group. I was the silent one, taking notes, but also learning so much. We focused, I think it was the crime and safety. We focused on political violence is what we said. Yes, political violence is never acceptable. And how they were blaming one party. And what was brought up was Charlie Kirk, but also the Minnesota legislator who was killed, that there have been really good people on both sides. Well, I don't know about Charlie Kirk, but we've all lost people, both those that are more progressive or on the Democratic side. And that our resolve was to strive to treat each other with respect and to reach out to our neighbor and lean in, listen to them, and try to respect and understand where somebody else is coming from. Put on their shoes for a minute, and maybe we can focus on being more acceptable of each other and working from there. So that was the one. I thought it was great that they brought up a couple people from both sides, and that it happens to both sides. Pocketbook issues, tariffs are going to bring in a lot of money. We said, yes, it's always a great idea to balance the budget. It's something we all strive to do. That's very true. But the tariffs are possibly not going to be able to take care of all of the debt. If we were to tax the very wealthy more, that is a more solid way, and it's been pretty much talked about. Okay, we had a story, wonderful story, and I don't know everybody's names, but the lady in our group, she has an expensive medication that came from Canada, and this is showing how the tariffs are a problem. and she needs this medication, but Canada has not been able to decide on how much it will cost because the tariff has not been decided. And they've been very patient with her, but she's had to call them a number of times, follow up. And she said that with that tariff, Canada thinks that she's going to have to pay $37 more per prescription. So in that regard, tariffs are holding up important medications, holding up things that people really need. We also talked about that there has been a balanced budget. As a matter of fact, under President Clinton, the budget did get balanced, and that it's always great to balance the budget and be sure that all of us can thrive, that all of the citizens will have what they need to survive. DEI, one thing we brought up, which I thought was great, was about the disabled, to broaden the definition. One gentleman mentioned about a disabled son who's incredibly able but needs more help to get where he can thrive more, and that should be afforded to him so that he can do his very best. Another person mentioned that with the DEI in the VA hospital, after George Floyd, more people of color, possibly more females, more people of color were hired at the VA hospital, and actually more people of color started to come to the VA hospital. They felt more listened to. So obviously DEI, you always have those wonderful qualities that people will give when there is a diverse workforce. And then healthcare, I think, was pretty much talked about by everybody. We mentioned about the rural hospitals that would close, and that would disrupt even, people who have insurance. Those white people, they wouldn't have a hospital either. And so and we did not know what to say about how we could resolve that, possibly, bugging your senators and your congressmen to vote against cutting Medicaid and Medicare. So that's what we did. A lot of storytelling, which I thought was really great.
Thanks, Kathy. That was really great. Good work on the note taking. It was a great group.
Very good.
And Dr. Chris, it makes sense for your group to be last.
Okay, I'm trying to, where's our note taker? Oh, Fernanda.
Yes. So our group, we also went into the topic of healthcare. It's a very important. And so I'll just add to the conversation what we spoke about, a lot of personal accounts as well, and very insightful. So for our shared value, ultimately, healthcare is very important, and we can all agree on that. Nobody wants waste in our healthcare system. And off of that, the disruptor, we had a few. First off is clarifying what exactly fraud, waste, and abuse means, because it's kind of a vague, and it's a lot easier to disseminate when you have an idea of what they mean. So also just building a better system to determine will help with those issues. And waste isn't necessarily at the individual level. It's more so at like a system level with corporations and staff, and just asking whether there is actually a case of how much waste really there is. And yeah, the vision was just reinstating the truth, which is that cutting Medicaid would harm a lot of very innocent and vulnerable people, and having a better oversight for managing our tax dollars is a sensible solution, not just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So yeah, that was summarized our conversation.
Summarized very well.
Job, and the rest of the team that contributed, because we had a lot of discussion in that one topic, and it was you really synthesize it nicely.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, wonderful. Y'all, that was some great work.
Yeah, nice job, everybody. Okay. So I think we're, oops, skipping ahead. So awesome job. So that's gonna conclude the part of the messaging program that we have tonight. We are going to have another messaging session. And that one is going to focus on what to say or what not to say when talking about vision forward. So tonight was more about dispelling misinformation when people are coming at you with that. Our next session will focus on what we want to get across. So we'll actually be pulling approaches from a couple of different folks and trying to develop a strategy there. But as I mentioned earlier, the content will be will all be based on the work that we've done so far in the previous phases of this project. So
Rebecca,
yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
somebody in the chat was asking if there was a place that they could get more practice with this method, I believe. The Truth Sandwich or Truth Brigade seems to have an old link. So if anybody has any suggestions for more practice with this style, please post it.
Yeah, so I thought okay, so you're saying the link that's in the last slide doesn't work? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I didn't check the link in the last slide. No, I was looking on Mobilize. Thank you.
Okay, so so there's two ways, but I'll answer the question. So there is a link that has a summary sheet, Indivisible Truth Brigade. But like I said, on Tuesday of next week for sharing our stories, we are going to actually have Jody Rhine, who is the founder of the Truth Brigade, meaning she works for Indivisible National. And I asked her just that question. So whoever said, hey, it would be helpful to have more practice. So she has agreed to do that session for us. So, and then the other thing that I was just curious about before we close it for the night is, can you put in the chat if you plan to use the messaging portion, like is that something that, I mean, for some of the folks that are on the call, we know you might have just participated for information, but if you actually plan to use the messaging portion as well as need practice with it, it would be helpful for us to know how much interest there is, I guess, in that. Okay, and now I'll turn it back over to Rebecca. So
I think someone has their hand up. Adriana looks like she's had a hand up.
that was Adrian that just spoke that asked the question.
Okay.
We got her. Thanks
for that recognition.
But thanks for looking out for her. But yeah.
Okay.
And then one additional thing on the Truth Brigade practice opportunities. I believe that NWSOFA, if has Truth Sandwich at lunch, I think it's every other Friday, or maybe it's the second Friday and the fourth Friday, but it's like every other week where Bill Davis and Jody get together and they come up with truth sandwiches, and those get shared on social media
at noon on Friday.
Yeah, and so actually, yeah, Candace Davis is the person that does that out of Evanston. And then the difference between what Jody will be doing on Tuesday versus what Candace does every other week is Candace is doing the social media posts, like Rebecca just said, whereas Jody is going to practice how you might even have a conversation with someone, more like the format that we were talking about tonight. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, awesome. So lots of opportunities to practice in multiple places. Ahead of next session, which we have to schedule, we will announce the date ahead of time. So you will have at least 2 weeks, possibly 3 weeks. So before that, we would love for folks to join us on the NWSOFA Discord. I believe Adrian has put the link in the chat a couple of times. If you need it, let us know. We can post that again. And come to the Vision Forward channel, because that's where we're sharing these documents and having conversations about this stuff. And one of the documents that you'll find in that channel is a framework document where we've kind of been pulling together sort of a, well, it's documentation, or it's a record of everything that we've done so far in this project in sort of a coherent place. So it's a little bit of work in progress right now. So if you have thoughts, do share those, and Discord is a good place to do that. And also just for your own homework, or if you'd like to have a couple of extra resources, we do have some videos to watch with Anat Shanker-Osorio in the Women's Law Center, and also if you want more detail on that truth sandwich. So that is the extent of our program for tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Cecilia to close us out tonight.
Hey, Cecilia, before you do the final closing, I just want to emphasize that Women's Law Center video. I saw that last night. It's the very first link in there. Strongly recommend that if there's of all the things that are on there, that you look at that one. Is really helpful. It's probably one of the better messaging sessions I've been to. And then I would also say the Anat Shanker-Osorio one right after that. But the Women's Law Center one is very practical in terms of what we were doing tonight. So, okay, now to Cecilia to close us out.
Okay. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here tonight. What we're building here together goes far beyond resisting what we oppose. It's about sharing our values and shaping a vision and truly figuring out who we are as a group, right? The sandwich shop exercise, it was a little tough, but it was also super fun, and we had a great time working through that together, I think. And now we know we've got a lot of work ahead, and we know what we can do, and we have something to look forward to, right? So as Barack Obama said, don't tell me words don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I have a dream. Just words? I don't think so. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Just words? Words matter. Let's keep lifting our vision and making our voices heard. We'll announce our next session soon. Until then, thank you once again and have a wonderful evening.
You're welcome.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
everyone.
It was really
Bye.
great.